Yeah, Americans see something American happening, Americanly in America. What are we, a bunch of Asians? What are we, fucking Chinese, dude? No, this is America. It's happening in America. Do you have nothing to say about this in the United States of America? This is where we're at. And plenty of people are celebrating this. They're championing it. They're salivating at the prospect of doing this kind of fascist nonsense. And blackbagged a bunch of Venezuelans that they had actually welcomed into U.S. Inside of the U.S. boundaries, and in a pure political ploy, decided to ship them to the El Salvador Anti-Terror Prison Unit, CCOT. We've watched the El Salvador CCOT prison before on this broadcast because a bunch of right-wing Mexican YouTubers went there and glazed Bukele and also the prison structure and talked about how awesome it is that they're like torturing people there. Lights on 24/7. Here we are. Another gross violation of human rights. In El Salvador, we've been under a state of exception since 2021, meaning we have no constitutional rights. People can be jailed without committing a crime or ever seeing a judge. Bukele has shut down all transparency, so any Venezuelan sent here can end up in a concentration camp with no records or oversight. Yes, I know. The prison system in El Salvador right now, due to MS-13 gang activity that was truly violent, okay, which is another American issue that we that we basically gave to El Salvador, but I'm not going to get into the history of that right now. Having said that, because of the massive amounts of crime caused by MS-13, which was born out of the U.S. prison system, where we initially dumped El Salvadoran migrants that became radical in the California prison system. We without telling the El Salvadoran government, deported those migrants to El Salvador, creating a network, a back and forth for MS-13 to operate. MS-13 became this like incredibly powerful gang as a direct consequence of us deporting El Salvadoran criminals from the California prison system, from MS-13 into El Salvador without informing the government, without telling the El Salvadoran government that these guys were MS-13 gang members. You can say, sure thing, buddy. It's just the truth, okay? It's just the truth. I'm not even talking about Venezuelan gangs right now. I'm talking about MS-13 and how MS-13 became a thing, became like this internationally renowned gang. I'm not talking about Tren de Aragua. I'm talking about MS-13, okay? Pick up the pace. Maybe you can accidentally learn a thing or two. So, Nayib Bukele, who initially came into power with a fairly progressive ticket, okay, who had a fairly progressive background. Nayib Bukele is literally of Palestinian descent. Before he became this like weird cryptocurrency guy, he was actually seen as like part of the pink tide, the social democrat to socialist revolutionary figures that were winning a lot of elections all around Latin America. And then he quickly changed that attitude. He actually had a lot of rehabilitative programs. Initially, when Nayib Bukele came into power, he had rehabilitative programs in mind. He was like, we have to do due process. We have to make sure that like we fix the underlying material conditions to make sure that crime can never manifest ever again. And then he became this monster. Okay? And yes, for those of you who don't know, there are a lot of Palestinians or people of Palestinian descent living in Latin American countries. Anyway, he came in and he built this massive prison structure called CCOT. And he started doing dragnet operations where if you were even 11 steps removed, okay, without any care or consideration to how you became MS-13 adjacent or MS-13 aligned, because MS-13, the way that they work, they'll go to a village or they'll go to a town and they'll basically say, we're going to kill your mother and your daughter if you don't work with us, right? Like basically shopkeepers, like anyone and everyone that they could claim was actually MS-13, they just grabbed, black bagged, and put in front of a judge. Sometimes 200 people at a time. 200 people sitting in front of a judge wearing a balaclava as the judge decides on all 200 being a part of MS-13 in real time like that. And once you have been decided, once you have been considered an MS-13 gang member, it's over for you. And that's what they did. That's what they did. And that's what they've been doing in El Salvador. Now, Bukele is saying you can use our concentration camps for the people that you're deporting from the United States of America. And that's precisely what's going on. Yeah. 7.7 million Venezuelans have left the country since 2015. Okay. They've gone mostly to other Latin American countries. Some of them have gone to Spain. And some of them have made their way all the way to the United States of America. The largest population went to Colombia, obviously, as I talked about before. This is a major destabilizing force. When you have 7.7 million refugees, you have a refugee crisis. And it did not have to be this way. Where is this? I remember reading this article about Bukele a few years ago. They interviewed a mother whose severely autistic son was abducted by the cops, and days after searching for him, found out he was sent to Supermax, where they don't even feed you consistently unless your family pays. Yeah. Even before he started the slave labor business, I could take one look at this guy and guess he was already embezzling from the treasury. Not that we needed the help, but American prestige will crater even further when everyone figures out the obvious here. Yeah. Nayib Bukele, who has been yelled at by Donald Trump, ironically enough, on numerous occasions, which is why I always thought it was strange. Donald Trump would go on CPAC and be like, Nayib Bukele, he sucks. He's dumping out his prisons, like probably because he doesn't know anything about Latin America. He probably thinks El Salvador is Venezuela or something. Okay. And he would constantly shit on Nayib Bukele, who's also a crypto guy, is now working with him because it said, hey, it's great. Send us all of your deportees. We'll use them as slave labor in our fucking concentration camps. That's where we're at right now. I need you to understand how insane this is. I'm not being hyperbolic at all. Okay, this is not hyperbole. We are here. We are officially in Nazi Germany status, but unlike Nazi Germany's concentration camps being maintained directly by people of German descent or the foreign legions or whatever, we are outsourcing the concentration camp to El Salvador. Okay. Now watch this video. Watch this promotional video from Nayib Bukele and tell me that this isn't Nazi shit. Okay. Go ahead. Nayib Bukele says, today, the first 238 members of the Venezuelan criminal organization Tren de Aragua arrived in our country. They were immediately transferred to CICOT, the Terrorism Confinement Center, for a period of 1 year, renewable. The United States will pay a very low fee for them, but a high one for us. Over time, these actions, combined with the production already being generated by more than 40,000 inmates engaged in various workshops and labor under the Zero Idleness program, will help make our prison system self-sustainable. As of today, it costs $200 million per year. On this occasion, the U.S. has also sent 23 MS-13 members wanted by Salvadoran justice, including 2 ringleaders. One of them is a member of the criminal organization's higher structure. This will help us finalize intelligence gathering, go after the last remnants of MS-13, including its former and new members, money, weapons, drugs, hideouts, collaborators, and sponsors. As always, we continue advancing in the fight against organized crime, but this time we are helping our allies, making our prison system self-sustainable and obtaining vital intelligence. They're making their prison system self-sustainable by doing slave labor. Okay? We're doing slave trade shit for Venezuelans who have not gotten any due process whatsoever. Venezuelans that have not, this is a work camp, okay? Arbeit macht frei shit. Understand? Work sets you free shit. I don't know what words to use. Like, it is not hyperbolic at all when I say this. We're there. We're here. Okay? This is it. This is the first step of the final act of the darkest chapter of American empire. Okay? Full tilt fascism. It was the first thing that Rubio made headlines doing when the admin got into office. It supposedly can hold 40,000 people, and Rubio said, we'd like to send U.S. citizens there as well. Yes, I remember. Did they copy this from Xinjiang? Oh my God, there are still people in here talking about Xinjiang. I'm losing my mind. Dude. Focus on what's happening in front of you. Stop trying to cope by being like, look at China. Okay? What are you saying? Do you like what happened in Xinjiang? Do you think that was good? If your answer is no, why the fuck are you saying that right now as a counter in this circumstance? When I'm talking as an American about what we are doing to documented migrants whose documentation we are revoking. Yeah, Americans see something American happening, Americanly in America. What are we, a bunch of Asians? What are we, fucking Chinese, dude? No, this is America. It's happening in America. Do you have nothing to say about this in the United States of America? This is where we're at. And plenty of people are celebrating this. They're championing it. They're salivating at the prospect of doing this kind of fascist nonsense. It is alarming to say the least. It's so weird to also talk about Xinjiang when America did this in U.S. borders against people of Japanese descent, when we had internment camps for people of Japanese descent. Okay? We did this already in World War II, which was already unacceptable, completely unacceptable. You understand? No, we didn't do this post 9/11. You're wrong. No, we did not do this post 9/11. The Patriot Act greatly normalized a surveillance state and basically set the legal basis for doing a lot of this stuff. For sure, it was an expansion of pre-existing, quote unquote freedoms that people had against government surveillance like this. But no, this is different. This is an expansion on top of that. We are reaching the end point. We are reaching the logical conclusion of the post 9/11 world. But even after 9/11, we didn't do internment camps overseas for people that we decided were a part of the axis of evil. Okay? Yes, America did this to Germans too during World War I and II. Yes. America did this during World War I as well. Yes. Yes, you did. Guantanamo. This is a chatters. I know how Guantanamo Bay works. Okay? There was still some semblance. This isn't a defense of Guantanamo Bay and the process. We are operating on a different scale than Guantanamo Bay now. Okay? Wake up. Guantanamo Bay is a permanent land lease agreement with the Cuban government, and they can't really say anything about it, obviously, so that we can avoid American laws and engage in torture and numerous other things on non-American soil. Guantanamo Bay captured people from all around the world with very little evidence whatsoever. Many of them were simply innocent, but were considered to be a terrorist, and were routinely tortured under a military facility. Okay? This here is just people on the basis of their ethnicity being denaturalized or having their immigration papers revoked while being called utilizing the same technique, but at a much greater scale. It's a much larger scale. For like every 100 person that was nabbed from Muslim communities in the United States of America or all around the world, you are going to experience this tenfold, because there are 400 or 500,000 Venezuelan migrants on U.S. soil right now with documentation. It is a scale that is far larger than Gitmo. It is an expansion of what we have done so far. Anyway, watch this. Watch this and tell me if this isn't Nazi propaganda. They grabbed a Venezuelan dude for having tattoos. Like that's what they're doing. And they're like, think about it. We didn't use the Alien Sedition Act post 9/11. We didn't even use the Alien Sedition Act post 9/11. There is no war happening right now, and the Trump administration is claiming that it's an invasion, that migrants are invading. How do you not see that this is an even greater expansion of the previous surveillance state? This is not a justification for the previous surveillance state. I have fought against it every single step of the way. Having said that, this is moving beyond that now. This is a logical conclusion. Yeah, they shaved everyone's heads. Except for this guy, apparently. Oh, they shave him in Seacott. Hold on, I gotta pee. Oof. Why are they firing their heads down when moving them? It's all different ways of engaging in like body torture, dehumanization, and to keep them in a state where it's an intimidation tactic. It's a way to keep them as like non-threatening as possible. It's like more difficult to do, more difficult to resist. It's also dehumanizing. It's like when you realize that the cruelty is the point, you will recognize why they're doing all of this. Yeah, human rights organizations have been actively writing about CCOT, actively writing about the lack of due process in El Salvador for almost a decade at this point, since it began, since it opened up. These facilities opened up, half a decade. What? You got fooled? This is El Salvadoran gangs, not people extracted from the U.S. Dog, they're using this as a propaganda piece. They're using this as a propaganda piece to say, this is what we're doing to the Venezuelans. What do you mean I got fooled? That's what Nayib Bukele is saying in the fucking video. What are you talking about? And we already know that the American government did ship a bunch of Venezuelan refugees. 238 of them. Then why are you showing the propaganda? Dude, why is it that when you're just in the wrong, there's something in you that just says like, no, I'm going to double down and like move. I'm just going to move the goalpost. Like, it's okay, man. It's all right. Like, we get things wrong sometimes. I get things wrong sometimes. You know what I do when I get something wrong? I say, I'm sorry. I was wrong about that. You can do that too. It's a healthy thing to do. All right. It's fine.
Responsibility to protect our families, to keep our streets clean and safe. And that's exactly what the president said he was going to do.
But after some non-citizens represented by the ACLU sued the administration, that federal judge in an emergency hearing Saturday.
Yeah, they also actively ignored the court orders, okay? The White House says it ignored a court order to turn around 2 plane loads of alleged Venezuelan gang members because the flights were over international waters and therefore the ruling didn't apply. Okay? It doesn't matter anymore. Like, they're basically saying, like, nope, there's nothing you can do about it. They were already in the air. Like, it's crazy. No rules, baby. Once the plane wheels are up and you're on international airspace, is over. You can do whatever you want.
Saturday ordered any plane containing these folks that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States, adding this is something that you need to make sure is complied with immediately. The 2 planes already in the air, sources tell us the administration made the calculated decision to ignore that directive. Sources say the planes carrying the alleged gang members took off during the hearing, the administration eager to get them in the air out of U.S. airspace and over international waters before the judge's ruling. In response to that order to turn the planes around, the president of El Salvador, a Trump ally, posting, "Oopsie, too late."
They needed to be brought back.
The other side of this, aside from like the active cruelty that we are watching in broad daylight as the government is functioning, in this like fascist state, collaborating with another fascist government, is that they're so fucking lame. Like, oopsie libtard. It's like I don't know what the historic equivalent of this is, okay? Like, the aesthetics are also busted. Everything is devolved. It's like moving away from the old Nazi font to Comic Sans as you're doing fascism.
And the judge absolutely had authority to do that. The United States government, the executive branch, defying a federal court order raises the stakes enormously, not just in this case, but for how we're going to proceed as a constitutional republic.
But the White House this morning insists the administration did not violate the court order and that the president acted within his authority, claiming federal courts have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct of foreign affairs or ability to remove foreign enemies. Now, all of this is coming as a Brown University professor, Dr. Rasha Alawi, a kidney transplant specialist, has been deported despite having a valid work visa and despite a court order temporarily blocking her expulsion. A Lebanese citizen, she was detained last week after returning to the U.S. from visiting family and put on a plane out of the country, again, despite that court order. A hearing in this case is expected later today.
Okay,
George.
Mary, thanks. Let's get more on this from our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. John, let's start with...
I get what you're saying, but why would you want gang members in your country? Oh my God. Oh my God. Chatter. I'm going to explain this one more time. Why do you believe everything that the government tells you? Why do you automatically assume that every single person being deported is a gang member? Why do you not want the American court system to actually actively handle violent gang members? Why? Not every country is El Salvador. Not every country has a concentration camp like this. Okay? If there are violent criminals that have engaged in violent criminal acts and they don't have citizenship on U.S. soil, I want them to be prosecuted and placed in an American facility. Okay? I want them I want the victims to see justice. That's number one. Number two, these people that are being deported, a big part of this problem right now is that they're nabbing everybody, whoever they can, without any sort of consideration, without any due process whatsoever. Due process is a right. It exists for a very good reason. It's so that the government doesn't do this, because the government that can do this to Venezuelans can do this to other Americans as well eventually. And if you think that they're not going to do that, you are fucking delusional. They are lying to you. They're trying to get you to respond by going, I don't understand. Why do you want violent criminals to stay in this country? That is the entire purpose. That is the entire reason as to why they are claiming anyone and everyone is a terrorist. They said this about Mahmoud Khalil, who was not a terrorist at all. He was a Columbia University student negotiator. He was a lead negotiator for the student movement on Columbia campus. He had never violated a single law, and they actively admitted that. They said he didn't violate anything. We just think he's a terrorist. We think he's a threat to American foreign policy, so he's now going to get deported. We're going to revoke his green card. A green card means you have legal permanent status. A green card is one step removed from being a naturalized citizen. The only difference between a green card holder and a full-blown U.S. citizen is that you just, or a naturalized citizen, is that you don't have the right to vote. That's it. He endorsed terrorism? No, he didn't. No, he did not. And for the record, even if he had, that is not, it's not, you can't deport someone or revoke their citizenship for that reason. You can't do that.